When I started practicing chiropractic, I did what all chiropractors do when they start a practice. I networked and I got myself wherever people gathered so I can tell them the story. I was doing screenings, outside lectures, health fairs. I actually went door to door to introduce myself in my community. In doing so, I have to say I built a very successful practice in a short period of time. Acquiring new patients became somewhat of a thrill. I had like an adrenaline rush, and I became quite good at it. Along with internal marketing initiatives, I was spending a lot of money, time, and energy acquiring these new patients. Then I remember one night I was looking at my accounting program and I realized that all my efforts in acquiring new patients had resulted in my practice being flat the last 3 years. In other words, I hadn't grown proportionally to my first years in practice. So where was the leak? That's what I had to figure out. One day I remember a patient I had not seen in a while come to mind. Like I'm sure it's happened to you. You think of a patient, you wonder, where's that patient? So I asked my assistant Darlene, I said, Darlene, where's John? So she looks at the books and she finds out that John wasn't scheduled and we hadn't heard from him in a while. So I asked her to give me his number so I could call him that night. And I have to say that call changed my life and my practice forever. So after a brief conversation, John explained that he had not returned because I had fixed him and that he felt better than ever. So here's what was happening. I would see an increase in visits and cash after a successful marketing initiative, only to see patients leave in the back end as soon as they felt better. Does that ring a bell? Then frustration and anger set in. I decided to do more marketing by doing more screenings, more health fairs, and more outside talks. I was everywhere except home and yielded the same results from my practice. No growth and more money spent. So I started realizing that the gap between a new patient and a patient who understands wellness care was education. So here's what I did. I started hosting workshops in my office and offered information about varying topics. You name the topic, I had a PowerPoint presentation for it. I would invite patients and encourage them to bring guests with hopes that these guests would eventually start care as well. Being that a good number of my patients were compliant and not committed, meaning they didn't buy into my vision, many patients canceled before the workshop, and most of the patients that did attend the workshop didn't bring a guest, coming up with all kinds of excuses. So after a short period of time, it dawned on me that these workshops were informative, but had absolutely no impact on the level of commitment of my patients, and that I had just created more work for myself. So now, not only was I doing screenings, dinner talks, corporate lectures, I was staying later at night to conduct these workshops. I realized I had created a life that was out of balance for myself, which inevitably led to more frustration, depression, and eventually a divorce. Then one day at a seminar in Hoboken, New Jersey, I'll remember it forever, I was listening to a very successful speaker talk about how he had created several multi-million-dollar businesses speak about emotional mapping. He said that the root of his success was a very precise assessment of how his clients feel at various precise moments while they were clients. At that moment, I had a major breakthrough. What if I could map and then eventually predict how my patients feel at various emotional touch points? What would that be worth? So I started asking patients how they felt emotionally at various touch points, such as before receiving their examination, after receiving their exam, before their report of findings, after their report of findings, to name a few. Once it was clear how all my patients felt at these emotional touch points, I developed a communication strategy or system based on their feelings or emotions. I had finally figured out the key to communicating with my patients at a deeper level and touch base with what they were thinking before they actually articulated or acted on their thoughts. If I knew their emotion was skepticism, I communicated a certain way. If the emotion was doubt, I made sure I addressed it. The key is that by knowing what they were thinking, I was in the driver's seat. The best part is that I leveraged myself through video technology, so I did not have to be there. I was not adding work, I was just getting my time back. I know you're probably fearful that you will have to change your procedures, but you won't. You see, regardless of the various different procedures from one office to the next, and there are a few, one thing remains the same: how your patients feel at these emotional touch points. Imagine knowing how your patients feel and having a specific communication strategy designed to deal with their emotions along their journey to health, even without being there. What would that be worth to you? That is exactly what Adjusting Attitudes does. Adjusting Attitudes is a new paradigm in the world of communication, and the impact it's going to have on the profession is huge.